In this episode, I will be interviewing Laura Voss. She's an empath who runs Oh My Fitness Coaching, and she dives deep in how she manages the challenges of being an empath, a highly sensitive person, and a business owner in Silicon Valley. She also discusses the challenges of boundaries, people pleasing, and burnout. So let's dive in. Hi everyone, this is Kavita, certified empowerment coach and hypnotherapist, and you are listening to the Enlightened Heart podcast, where we explore topics that empower HSPs and empaths to go from surviving to thriving in the world. I use my years of coaching, my personal experience, and my training to provide deep insights and implementable strategies to help you thrive. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Enlightened Heart podcast. And today I'm here with Laura. And Laura Voss is a left-handed middle child, an empath, artsy, type A, and INFJ, who more than anything loves being an auntie and who wants every woman in the world to really own how truly fierce and incredible they are. She's owned her Silicon Valley-based business for 6 years. She has been working to transform it from an in-home personal training to holistic boxing and confidence-focused fitness community programs online around the globe for powerful, highly sensitive women who need the support to continue rocking their fierce and fantastic lives. She's an advocate for survivors of sexual assault, the homeless, and all those whose voices need to be heard. Laura is an equal lover of Chardonnay and Brussels sprouts, intense hikes, and Netflix couch days, and is always in search of what helps make our souls feel the most fulfilled. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to be able to have you today on this podcast. And so I wanted to start so that our listeners could learn more about you and specifically about your journey to realizing that you were an empath. So let's start there. How did you find out that you were an empath?
Yes. So it's actually been only in the past few years. And a lot of it is thanks to you, getting to know you and learning how similar we were and looking at the way that you live your life. And you would both call me out on how I was feeling on things and help explain it to me that there's a reason that I feel these things maybe more or differently than other people. And unfortunately, going through some trauma myself in the past few years, starting to work with a therapist was invaluable. And her also teaching me about, that I'm not weird, I'm not sensitive, or I'm not weak for feeling these ways and being so deeply concerned with people, maybe more than it seems like to the outside world or to others. And so working with professionals who kind of just straight up told me, hey, you're a little different. This is who you are and this is why. And that it's a thing to look at as a beautiful part of my personality to work with instead of something that I was for a long time thinking was a weakness or something weird about me.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. It's so important for us to seek support, right? I find that's one of the hardest things for individuals, women especially, and definitely highly sensitive people and empaths, because there's a sense that we are somehow different or odd. And it feels like the feelings that we're feeling, no one else is feeling that way. Like we're alone in that. So happy to hear that it was helpful. I've really enjoyed our relationship so far and continue to learn more about each other over the years. Yay.
For sure.
Okay. So we talked about in the beginning in the introduction, I love that you're left-handed and you're an auntie and all those things, right? A lot of empaths are INFJ personality type, and not a lot of empaths are business owners.
I could see why.
So I'd love to hear about that. Let's really go into some of the challenges that you face as a business owner. I'd love to hear maybe something recent, especially with what's happening right now with this global pandemic and other challenges we're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So and that's a big part of my journey and learning that I was an empath as well, was when I started my own business. And as a business owner, you realize, and as an empath, you take on so much of that energy and so much of the concern and care for other people. And as a business owner, that's so hard because I need to make a living, but I was willing to bend over backwards and work 15-hour days and train 9 clients in a row and go to this and that and wear myself out because I wanted to have an option for everyone everyone and I wanted everyone to be happy. And I could see the different struggles they were having in their life, right? And I just wanted and still do want to be there for everyone in some way. And so that I think will honestly always be kind of a, not struggle, but just definitely a challenge and an adventure for me to learn how to balance that, right? Because as you know, as an entrepreneur, you're wearing a billion hats all the time, and you can't be also in charge of everyone's emotions around you, whether or not you're an entrepreneur or not. That's true. Right? But we are not in charge of that. And we have care and concern, which is awesome. But we also have to have those boundaries. And honestly, starting my own business was, like I said, a big part of me discovering how much of an empath I was and how highly sensitive a person I am. And also learning to have boundaries about what I could control and not. I think one of my most recent lessons in that has been, unfortunately, during this pandemic and during the struggles we're having, trying to make sure that all of our brothers and sisters in different communities are being represented and loved. I am the president of my weekly networking group, and I love that job because it does let me be able to help so many people and help give them a voice every week, which we need a lot as women and business owners and all these other facets of our lives. But about 3 weeks ago, so months into this pandemic, right, I have weekly been listening to these small business owners and how many struggles we're all having and just how different it is trying to function your business this way. And I've been there to support everyone and everything. And just a couple weeks ago, I actually full on had a breakdown because I think it was the first time I realized like, wow, my business is really hard right now. And I have had to shift hardcore when I finally thought that my calling was doing these really confidence focused boxing sessions in person with women to help them feel their most fierce. And now all of a sudden, we're terrified to be in that close distance with people and we can't do that. And I think as an empath, it didn't even cross my mind to take that time to both kind of grieve for my own business and look at it and reach out to other people. I was so focused on helping other people through this, which is obviously extremely important, and trying to shift my own business in the moment because you have to keep trucking along as a small business owner and entrepreneur. But it was kind of a golden 2x4 over the head to remind me that I need to take that time as well, right? And I cannot pour from an empty cup.
That's
now
so
more than
true.
ever.
Thank you for sharing that journey. That internal struggle of an empath of wanting to take care of everyone else and often pushing aside your own needs causes so many issues for us, right? It is an ongoing challenge to almost catch ourselves, right? To catch ourselves. Oh my gosh, here I am again in that same pattern of putting my needs aside and taking care of everyone else. And you found yourself doing it again.
I know. And that's one of the weird things right now. It's like, you know these things. I know these things, right? But like, holy cow, how did I let myself get that far along? And like, then why was I surprised to one day have a full on breakdown? Because I hadn't taken the time to reach out to anybody for this. It shifts your world upside down, something like what we're going through right now. So obviously everyone needs that support. And, I feel a little embarrassed or whatever admitting that, but it's just when you're going through the normal life of an empath and sometimes you still just don't even realize that you're going along and helping everyone else and you just don't even think of it. And for yourself.
It's really showing how strong you are to admit this out, right? In something like this, like a podcast, and to say this out loud, that I went back to my old pattern. When things get difficult, we go back to our adaptive patterns. How do we deal with stress? Taking care of others, pushing down what our needs are. Yeah. And because in some degree, we are fulfilled by helping others. Yeah. And so then this pivot for your business that you've had to take, Laura. I mean, I know you were doing these trainings and I loved watching you on social media with all these women and how empowered they were with the boxing. And I could see how passionate you are. It kind of felt the energy from your posts. Which is something we can do as empaths, one of our superpowers, right? And so I can only imagine what it's been like when this has happened with this global pandemic and all the struggles with all our brothers and sisters of the world, right? All the racism and all the things that have been happening around us. And then personally, you have this pivot in your business. And, there's always a part of me, at least, so I don't want to put words in your mouth, but for me, there's a sense of like, is this really that important important compared to what other people are going through. And it almost feels like maybe it's not as important. And so even more brushed aside.
Right. I think that's very true. It feels even harder to put your voice out there because you're not sure if it's, world changing enough or if it's important enough, right? Which is crazy because if we're being called to do these things,
and your own experience is so valuable and so valuable to hear others to hear what's happening for you. So what happened when you hit this wall, right? It's not what you called it, but this wall of, there's been my business has been hard. I've had to make this big pivot. So what did you do to support yourself to start to fill your cup again?
I definitely started limiting my meetings and things like that, even with people I really cared about, but I did have to take a couple weeks to just step back and just literally not be doing these very intense Zoom meetings or FaceTime calls where I'm getting into those discussions with people. And I found safe ways to do things that made me feel productive to help people again, though in other ways, helping out with volunteer organizations in safe ways and things like that. And I finally decided to see my family who I hadn't seen in over 6 months, which for me, really empties my cup. And it was just really transformative, I guess, of just in the moment feeling kind of selfish, but realizing that these are normal boundaries to have. To take care of yourself and do things, and also honor the part of myself that even though I am an introvert, as the empath side, you do still crave and want to take care of people, and that is a way to fill my cup. So I think one of my lessons this year, big time, has been learning how to, I guess, balance that and not beat myself up, because at the end of the day, that is still what helps me feel good, is to help other people. It's just finding that right fine line between that and what does kind of dry my cup out.
Yes, the awareness of why are you doing this? Do you have the energy for this? Yes. As you help other people, it does fill your cup to some degree, but only to a certain extent, right?
Right.
So knowing when, now I'm feeling a little bit depleted and now I need to, what are some other things that I can do to fill my cup, right? I love that you shared about being an introvert, because it's a big misconception, right? That introverts just want to be alone all the time. Oh, it's like, that's not true.
Right.
Yeah. So introvert is just means that you're really good at being by yourself. And that's part of how you fill your cup, but it doesn't mean you want to be by yourself all the time.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of us right now are finding that out too, finding out those differences, right? Because like you said, for me, I enjoy my alone time. I love just sitting on the couch and either reading a book or enjoying a glass of wine while I watch TV by myself more than almost anything. But I also love hosting parties and introducing people and being go, 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 right? And I think as just human beings in general, probably we always want to have a very defined line of like, this is the person I am, right? This is a thing that I am, because it makes it easier. But we're honestly all mixes of these different personality types and different things that fill our cup at different times. And I think, hopefully one of the lessons we kind of take out of everything going on is that it's okay if that sort of changes. And if you have to play around and figure out what it is that fills your cup right now.
And that's, with the energy around us, right? It has changed. Yes. Yeah. So, with what's happening around us as an empath, it would be complete disservice if I forgot to remind our listeners that we do have a tendency to absorb the energy around us. And if the energy is more intense, like it is and has been, and probably will continue to be for a little while, we may not be able to do as many things, right? Like we're used to. We may need to scale back or really just start to focus more and more on what's truly important to us, right? And so it sounds like, for instance, the meeting that you're the president of, that is really important to you, with boundaries, of course, right? So I would love to hear a little bit more about some of the boundaries that you've had to set. So what are some boundaries you've had to set besides not having, one thing I heard you say was, I don't really want to meet on Zoom all the time. There's that Zoom fatigue thing, right?
Oh my gosh, which is so real, right? So that for me has been a big one, doing things like limiting my news and social media and even email intake, because we definitely live in a state of life where your business flows into your personal, flows to the other, right? So that, I think, having those kind of twisted things all together sometimes is difficult. So basically just limiting everything. if that makes sense. And I think honestly too, Kavita, just sharing it more and not being afraid to kind of tell people, hey, wow, actually, I can't handle that right now, right? And that's something I've always appreciated about your and I's friendship and relationship and everything, is because we do naturally understand that about each other. And, as an empath, and just as a nice person, you always are concerned with, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't want to think that, they think I don't want to do this or something like that. And we just having to like check myself in the moment. That's like, okay, if one of my friends was coming to me and just being like, Laura, I'm really depleted right now and I love you to death, but I just can't even handle talking on the phone, I'd be like, oh my gosh, of course, I'm so sorry. Let me know when we can reschedule and how I can support you, right? So being able to draw those boundaries, I think also on almost the flip side of that, being a lot more flexible as well, though, and kind with myself, because if you have seen me or know my stuff, then I love a schedule. I love a really tight schedule that I can work with and know exactly what I'm doing when. And I have a giant 12-week long-range calendar up on the wall in my office for my business. And something that this pandemic has taught me is that, okay, I may not know what the next week looks like in terms of how my business can function or how we can function in society. So also giving up some of the control that I like to have because I care about people and I care about being successful has been a good lesson, I'd say. In flexibility and knowing what I can control and kind of rolling with the punches
flexibility.
In some ways.
Amazing. That's part of resilience, right? To be flexible. And experience is definitely teaching us that. And so you said something about running a business, beginning of this, and mentioned about your 12-week calendar. I love that. So I'd love to hear about your challenges specifically with being an empath and running a business in Silicon Valley.
Yes. So in Silicon Valley, I think a lot of us who are not in the tech sphere often feel like we're a little different, right? Because that's why many of us are here, or kind of what the Valley functions on. And so, especially as an empath, you kind of are already set on a different level of like, oh my gosh, I'm already different. And why am I different? And how do I approach those people? Because I care so much about them, but we in general have very different personalities, right? And we feel things in different ways. We work through problems in different ways and things like that. So learning to work with clients who are in a different personality sphere than I have been is very enlightening and has been a great source of education for me, I would say. And I think also just being a young female in business, and probably also as an empath, even though, I feel like people a lot of times are like, you've always just come across as so confident. Like, I can't believe that you have these insecurities, and just realizing how we really are our harshest critic as empaths. And especially as women, we're just always kind of nitpicking on different things. And when you own your own business, that can be an especially hard place to be, because if you are a solopreneur, which is what I am right now, there's no one to kind of check you on your head trash either. And so that's where I feel like having powerful colleagues and clients and friends who do uplift that and who check you on your head trash can be so vital, or else you will kind of get bogged down in all those insecurities that we all naturally have when we're trying to change the world and help people's lives.
Yeah, so definitely having support, it sounds like, is really important, and like-minded support at that. Also the comparison, right? That could really take us out, comparing ourselves to other women, comparing ourselves to other businesses, especially in Silicon Valley, and because of the type of businesses that we both have, that can be a really bad downward spiral to go down. And so having that support and people that that you can call and say your truth, and they can call you out, right? They can say, Laura, get back on. You're much needed. Your work is much needed in the world. Sounds like that's really important.
Right. I absolutely think so. Right. Yeah. And like you said, the comparison thing, I don't think will ever be totally gone, but it is important to see that, we as empaths and as, highly sensitive women, we appreciate everyone at their face value and the different ways that we do something. And so it's weird that we turn that and beat ourselves up. And I'm like, well, I didn't get funded for a gajillion dollars to start this startup, right? It's like, well, I never asked for that. And that's not really the point of my business, Laura. So why is that a problem?
The whole idea of the hustle, right? I just keep hearing like the hustle, you have to hustle, and know if that fits as an empath.
Oh my gosh. No. And why do we need that all the time? That's asking for burnout. That's completely how I burned out 3 years into running my business. So having those different messages for the real different ways that people are wired is so important.
Wow, that's really great. Thank you for sharing that story. And I'm hoping that other people hear that, right? The comparison that we're all on our own unique journey. And it's really important, especially as a solopreneur, to be able to have support around you and to create that. And there's lots of ways you can do that. Okay, Laura, so I'd love to ask you, what advice do you have for other empaths if they're just finding out that they're empathic, or maybe they're in that burnout that you felt in that third year of business? What advice do you have for them?
First, stop beating yourself up, because I guarantee you are being your harshest critic by a mile and a half. So as much love and concern as you pour onto everyone else, try to pour that onto yourself. In these really weird times, like I was saying before, I think we all want to know who exactly we are, right? I want to know I'm an INFJ or I am an introvert, because that helps me for some reason define who I am and how I function. And I think what a lot of us are learning right now is that even those great coping mechanisms we learned by being that specific person or yada yada may not be working in this wild time in the universe that we're in. So taking time to check in with yourself a lot more and see literally in that instant, how am I feeling and how do I want to move forward? And who is best served by me doing something right now? And maybe that means spending a day on the couch and not talking to anyone and trying to not look at social media or things that maybe make you feel too many big feelings for that present moment. And maybe it means pushing yourself harder into your business or harder into your relationships. And I know it seems crazy, but I think right now, kind of trying to ride that wave may be the important thing that we are doing, as long as in good faith with ourselves, we are truly checking in to see in the moment what feels best to us and being kinder to ourselves as we are to most everyone else in our life.
Yes, amazing. Great advice. Thank you for sharing that. And so, as you know, I end these interviews with the signature segment called Resource Reveal. So, what is one resource that you'd like to share with the listeners today?
I would have to say Gabrielle Bernstein. So you can go to her website, you can read her books, which I've read several of, and I love that she is very much this soul, spirit-driven person, and also incredibly real and incredibly also topical with today, which is helpful through her blogs and her meditation. She's been a resource I've used for years, and I love a person who is always quick to say, hey, I'm not a pro at this. Hey, here's the things I struggled with and I still struggle with. I think as women and as empaths and as human beings, we need that reminder that we are not in a fixed state ever. We are ever changing and ever growing people. And I think Gabby Bernstein is one of the most incredible resources for that, for sure.
Awesome. Great. So I will put a link to her website and things in the show notes. So thank you for sharing that. And then if people want to get in touch with you, Laura, tell us what you're up to right now and how the listeners can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you've heard plenty of, I am shifting my business. I just started a monthly membership program that I'm very excited about, because as gyms are going to be slow to open up and as so many people may not feel comfortable going back to that, I think one of the most important things that we're missing from that is the community that we can build. And so I'm excited to have my Strong Her monthly community membership, which is both videos of workouts emailed to you as well as affirmations and self-care checkouts of the week. But it comes with this big community drive where you are getting to meet with these other women and commiserate and everything like that in a virtual format, so that you still have that really important community we need. So I'm really focusing on that. And as always, on my women's wellness planner, which is a planner that I still get printed and can mail across the country. And it's just a really empowering piece for women to be able to write down their goals and their thoughts and then look back at the end of the week and be able to track those and be able to pat themselves on the back for the amazing amount of things that we're doing and we're becoming every day. And then following me on Instagram at Oh My Fitness Coaching is always fun. You get to generally just see my kind of goofy side. I like to keep it very lighthearted and I'm welcoming you into my life and showing you it's always a journey, and it's definitely more fun together.
Yay. So excited for those, for your membership program. And I love the Women's Wellness Planner and definitely Instagram. I love following you on Instagram. You're so authentic and your personality shines through. So thank you so much for being so honest and open today. And if anybody wants to get in touch with Laura, I will have all those links available in the show notes. Take good care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for the Enlightened Heart podcast. Remember, I will have all the resources I mentioned on this podcast at my website, theenlightenedheartpodcast.com. I started this podcast because I wanted to have a way that I could support HSPs and empaths thrive in the world that's not designed for us. Our gifts are much needed, and I hope this podcast is supportive. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this podcast, take a moment to subscribe